I'll never forget his exact words. Delia, there's just no room for redundancies in our new structure. Redundancies. 15 years of my life redundant. I sat there in that sterile conference room, looking at Ryder's perfectly groomed beard, thinking about how I'd literally built the systems keeping this entire company alive while he was still in college. I take a deep breath, adjusting my position slightly. The ring light casts shadows across my bedroom wall. It's 3:17 in the morning, and I'm finally ready to tell this story. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Delia Corzo, 42, recently unemployed, and about to tell you how I accidentally on purpose caused the biggest pharmaceutical logistics crisis since, well, ever. I laugh, but it comes out hollow. Before I really get into this mess, please like this video, subscribe if you want to hear more corporate warfare stories, and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Because honestly, I need to know I'm not just screaming into the void right now. I twist my silver ring around my finger, the one my abuela gave me before she died, the one I was wearing the day I got hired at MedRoute. So, 6 months ago, picture it, I'm sitting across from Ryder Holloway, our genius COO who'd been with the company all of 8 months. Behind him is Tessa from HR, avoiding eye contact because she's known me for 12 years. We ate lunch together every Wednesday until she got promoted. I reach for my water, taking a long sip. I should back up. MedRoute isn't just some random company. They transport temperature-sensitive medications. Cancer drugs, vaccines, biological samples, stuff that costs thousands per dose and will literally kill people if it gets too warm or cold. I designed their tracking system. Like, the entire architecture that monitors every shipment down to the second. I built it from scratch when I was 27. I run my fingers through my hair, tugging slightly at the ends. The thing about specialized logistics is nobody notices it until it breaks. For 15 years, I made sure it never broke. I canceled my honeymoon when the system needed upgrades. I took calls at 3 a.m. when sensors malfunctioned in Singapore. I missed my dad's 60th birthday party because a hurricane threatened our Miami hub. Liam, my ex-husband, used to joke that MedRoute was my real spouse. My voice catches. I hadn't meant to bring up Liam. Anyway, the company had been struggling. Our stock dropped 40% in 8 months after Ryder pushed through all these cost-cutting measures I warned against. They switched to cheaper temperature sensors that failed constantly. They stretched out delivery routes to save fuel. Basic stuff that anyone with half a brain could tell you would backfire in our industry. I lean closer to the camera. You know what Ryder said when I showed him the data predicting exactly how much these savings would cost us? He said I was resistant to change and too emotionally invested in outdated systems, as if caring about doing things right was a character flaw. I feel my face flush with the remembered humiliation. So there I am, sitting in this room with industrial carpet that smells like disinfectant, being told I'm redundant by a man who couldn't explain how our tracking algorithm works if his life depended on it. And Tessa is sliding this manila folder across the table with my separation package. 3 months severance for 15 years. I hold up 3 fingers, letting the absurdity sink in. I didn't cry, I didn't argue. I said, I understand, like some robot. I shook Ryder's hand, his palm was sweaty, and I walked out with security watching me pack up my desk like I might steal office supplies. I reach off camera and hold up a plain white mug. I did take this, though. It's just a company mug, but it was my mug. Used it every day for a decade. I set it down with a little too much force. Not my finest moment of rebellion. I look directly into the camera. As I'm walking to my car, still in shock, my phone buzzes. It's Adrienne Kim from FarmTrack. They're our MedRoute's biggest competitor. She'd been trying to recruit me for years, and I'd always politely declined because of, loyalty. I laugh bitterly. She texts, heard about the layoffs. When can we talk? I pause for dramatic effect. I almost threw my phone across the parking lot, not because I was angry at Adrienne, because in that moment I realized just how stupid I'd been. While I was canceling vacations and working weekends, MedRoute was building a company culture that could discard me without a second thought. And the competitors? They knew my value better than my own company did. I tuck my hair behind my ear, revealing the small tattoo of a compass on my neck. So I sat in my car, air conditioning blasting because it was June in Phoenix, and I typed back, "Tomorrow, your office." Name the time. Then I drove home, opened a bottle of tequila my sister brought back from Jalisco, and got spectacularly, embarrassingly drunk, alone. I shrug. The next part isn't very cinematic. I interviewed with FarmTrack. They offered me 30% more than I was making at MedRoute to come build them a next-generation tracking system. I said yes. I signed all the paperwork. Standard non-compete review, which determined that since I'd been laid off, those clauses were unenforceable. It was all very corporate. I lean in, lowering my voice. But here's where it gets interesting. Adrian, who's now my boss, didn't just want me to replicate MedRoute's systems. She wanted something completely different. And she gave me a team, a budget, and total creative control. I smirked slightly. And I had ideas. Because for years, I'd been keeping this mental list of everything MedRoute was doing wrong. All the innovations they shot down because they were too expensive or too disruptive. Every single flaw in their operation that Ryder and the board were too short-sighted to fix. I tapped my temple. I know every weakness in MedRoute's armor. Every single one. I know which hub managers take extra long lunches on Fridays. I know which temperature sensors fail in humidity above 80%. I know which clients have been dissatisfied for years, but stayed out of convenience. I know exactly how long their backup generators last during power outages. I leaned back, crossing my arms. But I wasn't bitter or anything. I can't maintain the sarcasm and burst into genuine laughter. Okay, I was absolutely bitter. I was furious. And for the first time in my career, that anger became fuel for something brilliant. I hold up my phone, scrolling through something. 3 months. That's how long it took us to build FarmTrack's new system. We called it Pulse. It didn't just track shipments, it predicted problems before they happened. It rerouted automatically around weather events. It adjusted refrigeration levels based on outside temperatures. And it cost less to operate than MedRoute's outdated patchwork of systems. I set my phone down. We rolled it out quietly. No big marketing push. Just started approaching MedRoute's clients one by one. And we focused on the ones I knew were already unhappy. The ones Ryder had dismissed as demanding or not worth the maintenance effort. I smile, but there's no warmth in it. By month 4, MedRoute had lost 12% of their client base. By month 6, it was 27%. Their stock, which had already fallen 40%, dropped another 35%. I pick up the MedRoute mug again, turning it in my hands. But the revenge wasn't just in taking their clients. The real satisfaction came 3 weeks ago when Adrian forwarded me an email. FarmTrack had received an inquiry from MedRoute. They wanted to license our Pulse technology. I set the mug down carefully. They didn't know I had built it. My name wasn't on any of the press releases or marketing materials. I was behind the scenes, just like always. I take another sip of water, my hand shaking slightly. Adrian asked what I wanted to do, and I had this moment where I could picture Ryder opening an email that said, "System designed by Delia Corzo, formerly of MedRoute." I could imagine his face when he realized what had happened, that the redundant employee had created the technology making his company obsolete. I sighed deeply. But I didn't do that. Instead, I asked Adrian for something else. I pause, gathering myself. I requested to personally handle the meeting with MedRoute. And 2 days ago, I walked into our glass-walled conference room, where Ryder Holloway was waiting to discuss licensing terms with FarmTrack's chief systems architect. I can't help the smile that spreads across my face. The look on his face when I walked in. God, I wish I could show you a picture. It was like watching someone get hit with a bucket of ice water and then immediately try to pretend they're dry. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. He recovered quickly. I'll give him that. "Delia," he said, like we were old friends running into each other at Starbucks. "I had no idea you were with FarmTrack now." I roll my eyes. And I just smiled and said, "Not just with them, Ryder. I built Pulse, the system you're here to beg for." My voice drops to almost a whisper. And that's when I slid my folder across the table to him. just like Tessa had done with my severance package. Except mine contained the licensing terms for Pulse. Terms that would essentially give FarmTrack oversight of MedRoute's entire operation. I shake my head slowly. I watched him skim the document. I watched his face fall as he realized what it meant. That MedRoute would become dependent on the technology I created. That they would be paying me in perpetuity for the privilege of using a system similar to what they could have had if they'd just listened to me years ago. I lean back against my headboard, suddenly looking tired. He tried to negotiate, of course, tried to appeal to my loyalty to the company we built together, as if he hadn't personally shown me exactly how much that loyalty was worth. I run my hand over my face. And that's where we are now. MedRoute's board is reviewing the terms. They don't have much choice, they've lost too many clients already, and trying to build a competing system from scratch would take years they don't have. I look directly into the camera again, my expression serious. So why am I telling this story at 3 a.m. instead of sleeping soundly in the glow of my perfect revenge? Because it doesn't feel like I thought it would. I tug at a loose thread on my sleeve. Don't get me wrong. Watching Ryder squirm was everything I'd dreamed it would be. But I keep thinking about the other 199 people who lost their jobs. About Kira in accounting who has 2 kids in college. About Dev in operations who just bought his first house. My voice grows quieter. The truth is, I didn't just build MedRoute systems. I built relationships there. And even though my revenge was aimed at the executives who devalued me, it's affecting everyone at the company. I look down at my hands. That's the messy part they don't tell you about revenge. You can't control how far the ripples go. I glance at my phone as a notification lights up the screen. Tomorrow? Well, today technically, the board votes on our terms. If they accept, MedRoute essentially becomes FarmTrack's subordinate. If they refuse, they'll likely lose another 20% of their clients by year's end. I touch the compass tattoo on my neck unconsciously. Either way, I've proven my point. I've shown my value in the most definitive way possible. But I'm left wondering if burning down the house I helped build was worth it, just to prove I was right about the faulty wiring. I take a deep breath. I'll update you after the board meeting. This story isn't over yet, and I'm still figuring out how I want it to end. Because the thing is, I'm not just the villain or the hero in this story. I'm both, and I'm neither. I'm just a person who got hurt and wanted to hurt back. I lean forward, adjusting the camera slightly. If you've stuck with me this long, thank you. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Would you have done the same thing? Have you ever been discarded by a company you gave everything to? I want to know I'm not alone in this weird, conflicted feeling. I tuck my hair behind my ear again. I'll be back with part 2 after the board meeting. And whatever happens, I promise to be just as brutally honest about it as I've been tonight, even the parts that don't make me look good. So I'm back. It's been, 36 hours? Since I filmed that first video. A lot has happened. More than I expected, honestly. I'm sitting cross-legged on my bed now, hair pulled back in a messy bun. No makeup, eyes slightly puffy. I didn't sleep after posting that first part. I just sat here, reading your comments, feeling this weird mix of validation and shame. So many of you have been through similar things. That comment from Wandering Echo 82 about getting laid off after training her replacement, I cried reading that. I rub my eyes and sigh. Anyway, the MedRoute board meeting. It was scheduled for 9 a.m. I was supposed to get a call from Adrian immediately after. So I'm sitting at my kitchen counter at 8:57, staring at my phone like it might explode when it rings. But it's not Adrian. I pause, fidgeting with my ring again. It's Sheila Martinez, MedRoute's board chair. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. I reach for my water bottle. Her voice was all business. Delia, she says, I understand you're the architect behind FarmTrack's Pulse system. No greeting, no small talk. Classic Sheila. I'd only met her twice in 15 years, but she has this reputation for being brutally direct. I take a sip, gathering my thoughts. I confirmed that yes, I designed Pulse. And she says, I'll never forget this. The board would like to hear directly from you before we vote. Can you be at headquarters in 30 minutes? I shake my head, still somewhat in disbelief. I should have said no. I should have directed her to Adrian. That would have been the professional thing to do. Instead, I said, I'll be there in 20. I laughed softly. I've never gotten dressed so fast in my life. I had this weird moment picking out my outfit. Like, what do you wear to witness the culmination of your revenge plot? I went with this navy blue dress I'd bought for my divorce court appearance, but never wore because we settled. Seemed fitting. I lean in closer to the camera. So I walk into MedRoute headquarters for the first time since being escorted out 6 months earlier. The security guard, Joaquin, recognized me immediately. Ms. Corzo, are you back? The hope in his voice almost broke me. I just smiled and said I had a meeting with the board. I glanced down, remembering. The executive floor was exactly the same. Same weird abstract paintings that look like someone spilled coffee on graph paper. Same reception desk where Valerie has been checking people in since before I started. She hugged me, whispered, "They've been in chaos since you left," and led me to the boardroom. I take another drink of water. 12 people sitting around this massive walnut table. Sheila at the head, Ryder looking like he'd spent the night grinding his teeth to dust. And then, this was the surprise. Tessa from HR. Not normally someone who'd be in a board meeting. I raise my eyebrows meaningfully. Sheila gets right to it. Ms. Corzo, we've reviewed the licensing terms for Pulse. Before we vote, we'd like to understand directly from you. Is this offer punitive? I let out a short laugh. Can you believe that? Is this offer punitive? As if I was a child acting out, not a professional responding to market conditions. I remember standing there, feeling everyone's eyes on me, and something inside me just shifted. I straightened my posture, recalling the moment. I told them the truth, that the terms reflected the value of the technology and the current market position of both companies. That similar deals happen all the time in our industry. That this wasn't personal, it was business, their favorite phrase when laying people off. I smiled tightly. And then I said something I hadn't planned. I said, but if you're asking whether I designed these terms with the knowledge that I built your existing systems and understand exactly what this transition will cost you in time, resources, and institutional knowledge, then yes, this offer acknowledges that reality. I tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear. The room got so quiet you could hear the air conditioning. And then Sheila did something that completely threw me. She asked everyone except herself, me, and Tessa to leave, including Ryder. I raised my eyebrows. You should have seen his face. He tried to protest, but Sheila just gave him this look. If you've ever worked for a truly powerful woman, you know the one, and he practically stumbled over his own feet getting out. I shift position, leaning against my pillows. Once the door closed, Sheila pushed a folder across the table, different from the one Ryder had seen. Inside was a counteroffer. Not for licensing Pulse, but for acquiring FarmTrack entirely, with me returning to MedRoute as CTO. My eyes widen, still processing it. I was speechless. Tessa, who still hadn't said a word, finally spoke up. The layoffs were Ryder's initiative. The board approved without understanding the technical implications. We've been trying to recover ever since. I shake my head slowly. Sheila was more blunt. We made a catastrophic error in judgment, Delia. Not just in letting you go, but in allowing decisions to be made by people who don't understand our core business. Pulse isn't just better than what we have now. It's what we should have built years ago when you first proposed it. I laugh in disbelief. Apparently, and I didn't know this until that moment, I'd developed a reputation on the board as the person whose ignored warnings always came true. The Cassandra of MedRoute, Sheila called me. The prophet no one listened to until it was too late. I run my fingers through my hair, tugging slightly. I told them I needed to call Adrian, which I did, from a small office they gave me for privacy, and she wasn't surprised at all. Turns out, she and Sheila had already discussed this possibility weeks ago, without telling me. I shake my head, still processing the betrayal. I felt manipulated all over again, like a chess piece being moved around by people with more power. I told Adrian that, and she said something I'm still thinking about. Delia, you've always seen yourself as just the system architect, never the strategist. That's why people underestimate you and why you underestimate yourself. I looked directly at the camera. I went back to the boardroom and told them I needed terms that respected what had happened, that I couldn't just pretend the layoffs never occurred, that my return would have to mean real structural changes. I smiled slightly. Sheila nodded like she'd been expecting this. Name them, she said. I hold up 3 fingers. First, I wanted Ryder out. Not just demoted, gone. Second, I wanted a review of all 200 layoffs, with priority rehiring for positions in the new structure and meaningful severance improvements for those who couldn't come back. And third, I wanted a seat on the board, not as a symbolic gesture, but as the technical voice that had been missing. I take another sip of water. Tessa started typing immediately. Sheila just watched me for a moment, then said, "Anything else?" Like I'd ordered a coffee, not just demanded a corporate restructuring. I laughed softly. I asked for one more thing. I wanted the company to formally adopt an ethical framework for all future decisions, one that valued the human elements of our work as much as the financial ones. Because we're not just moving packages, we're moving medications that keep people alive. I looked down at my hands. Sheila agreed to all of it. We spent the next 4 hours hammering out details. The acquisition will be announced next week. Ryder was informed of his termination that afternoon. And I start as CTO on Monday. I shake my head in disbelief. So that's the twist ending I didn't see coming. My revenge plot turned into a corporate ascension I never asked for. The company that discarded me is now partially mine. And all those people who lost their jobs because of bad decisions, I'm now responsible for trying to make things right for them. I look thoughtful. Dev from operations, the one who just bought his first house, he's already accepted an offer to return. Kira from accounting is still deciding, but we're talking. It turns out revenge isn't the straight line I thought it was. It's this tangled path that sometimes leads you right back to where you started, but standing in a different position. I fidget with my ring again. The truth is, I'm terrified. What if I fail? What if I become exactly what I hated? What if this power changes me into someone who could lay off a 15-year employee without a second thought? I look up, vulnerability clear on my face. But I'm also hopeful for the first time in years, because now I have the authority to build the systems, both technical and human, that I've always believed in. And I have a chance to show that doing the right thing isn't just morally correct, it's also good business. I pull my knees up to my chest. I called Liam yesterday to tell him what happened. We haven't really talked since the divorce, but this felt important somehow. He laughed and said, "Only you could get fired and end up running the company." And then he said something that hit me hard. "You were always fighting for a seat at the table where decisions get made. Now you have it. What will you do with it?" I stare off camera for a moment. That's the question I keep asking myself. What will I do with this power I never sought? How do I use it without becoming corrupted by it? I don't have those answers yet, but I'm going to find out. I straighten up, looking directly at the camera. So that's where this story ends. Or really, where a new one begins. Not with the perfect revenge I'd imagined, but with something more complicated, more challenging, and maybe more meaningful. I smile, a genuine one this time. I want to thank all of you who commented on the first video, who shared your own stories of corporate betrayal and resilience. You helped me realize I wasn't alone in this experience, and you gave me perspective when I needed it most. I lean in closer. If you're watching this and you're in a situation where you feel undervalued, discarded, or powerless, please know that your story isn't over yet. The skills and knowledge that make you valuable don't disappear when someone fails to recognize them. Sometimes they become the foundation for something you never imagined possible. I tuck my hair behind my ear one last time. I'll update you all in a few months, once I've settled into this new role. I promise to be just as honest about the challenges and victories as I have been about everything else. If you want to follow this journey, please subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment about a time when what seemed like your lowest moment turned into an unexpected opportunity. Because I could really use that wisdom right now. I smile softly. This is Delia Corzo, no longer redundant, still figuring it out, signing off. Thank you for listening.